everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Rennie, and this is the Kenny and Rennie post-game show after, I thought was a game that the Winnipeg Jets should walk away being extremely happy from. These little kind of rants that I go on before the show starts, I never rehearse them. I kind of want them to be like a string of thoughts kind of thing, a string of, or whatever, consciousness kind of thoughts, so that, I'm not trying to like create something. I'm trying to, like, as I'm working through it, figure it out. But what I take away from that game, I think Winnipeg Jets, who may be, point percentage wise, the best team in the Western Conference, took on the best team in the Eastern Conference, came down to a 1-goal game. There's, some bounces going either way. That I clear from people in the chat room that there's some people who have an issue with the reffing and how that played out tonight. I didn't. We should probably talk when Ken gets into the show, because we were texting back and forth about the Dubois getting the high stick kind of underneath the visor. I know a lot of people took issue with that. We'll get into all that kind of stuff. I just think that, an injured Winnipeg Jets team, and I'm not going to lay into the excuses because I don't think that's the entire story here. I think the Winnipeg Jets came rolling in here and walk out of Boston with the feeling that they can run with anyone in this league. I mean, this is a Boston Bruins team that has been absolutely dominant. They destroyed the Florida Panthers not that long ago. This is a tough team that plays a real pressure game, just the same way the Winnipeg Jets do. I love the storyline that we'll have to get into, coach on coach here with Monty on the Bruins bench, the guy who was the head skipper on the Dallas Stars bench a couple of years ago before Rick Bowness took over in his absence, which essentially is what's reestablished and revived Rick Bowness's career as a head coach in the NHL. It's kind of like the Spider-Man meme. I know I've pulled this one out before, but like the two Spider-Men kind of pointing back and forth at each other. I thought that this was one of those situations you can see where both these coaches have been affected and influenced by the other coach in the way that they have each of them playing their game. Yeah, that bounce definitely turned things around here, but and I know a lot of people are saying that's the entire difference here. I don't go down that road. Stuff happens in games. The Jets have got their share of good bounces over this season, over the last couple of seasons. The Boston Bruins got one here tonight. There's plenty of time to recover from that. For me, this game is decided after it's 2-2, and the Jets basically get outplayed for almost the entirety of the third period until that goal goes in, and then the Jets make a real hard last-second push to get back into that game. What I saw was a team that was willing to sit back and try and do what they did earlier on, and that's get, kind of that scoring that like, let's talk about Scheifele's first goal. That's an opportunistic goal, right? Once again, the Jets score on their second shot of the game. They get an early goal right out of the gates. It's kind of one of those goals that, like, it looked like the Bruins were the faster team coming out of the gates, and all of a sudden the Jets are up 1-0, and then they're up 2-0. It felt to me like the Jets fell back into waiting for opportunism to win the day and didn't want to get into the grind. Now, there will be a lot of reasons for that. The Jets have had a very, very hard schedule. I believe the Bruins have played less games. It's not a ton, but that matters at a time of year like this. Clearly, we'll go back to injuries. That plays a role in this and the Jets' ability to push. But in the vein of, the way that the Jets handle this and the way Rick Bowness has been handling this season, there's no excuses here. A time in the game, the Boston Bruins in the third period went out to win that game, and the Winnipeg Jets didn't. For me, that's the difference in this game. That's the difference in a 1-goal game. All that said, if I'm the Winnipeg Jets, I walk out of this building knowing the next time I see that Boston Bruins team in Winnipeg, I think I'm going to be just fine facing them. I think the Jets walk out of this knowing, because so far the Western Conference has been the weaker of the two conferences. I think we walk out of this after having had some trouble against Eastern Conference teams. You walk out of this situation thinking, listen, we just saw the best of what the Eastern Conference has to offer, and we're right there. So to me, this is a measuring stick game. If I'm the Jets, yeah, you didn't come out right at the top of the measuring stick, but you are right there. I think there's no problem in that game. There's lessons to learn. And I know Rick Bowness is, kind of crazy about the idea of the Jets really pushing to finish first. The way I see the Western Conference rolling out this year, the potential for a team like Colorado to end up in a wild card. I don't think that's where they're going to end up, but it's the potential for a team like the Edmonton Oilers to finish in a spot like that, a team that doesn't have things figured out, but if they ever did, I think could be extremely dangerous. I think this is going to be one of those years where if you finish first and you're finishing the play, you're playing against the 8th seed, or second playing against the 7th seed, that it's really not going to be a break this season. So I'm not, nuts about a lost 2 points here or there or whatever. I'm very confident the Jets are going to make the playoffs. I think whether they finish first, second, third, or in a wild card, it's going to be a grind no matter who they play. So I don't think that the Jets need to knock themselves out trying to make sure they get every single point. That said, you got to put in the effort. On a night like tonight, I think in my opinion, it's a very obvious difference between these two teams. The Bruins kept pushing, the Jets didn't. And that's a lesson to be learned. That's the way I take it. I'm wondering how my main man, Kenny Weeb, took that. Best way to find that out, let's bring him into the show. Man with the best music in the business, here comes Kenny. Kenny, my man, looking good as usual. We're in the home clothes. I got the cozy sweater on and the hat on. Looks like you're going pretty cozy. I don't know if our main man Frank is sitting over there just cringing right now watching us. He knows we can do better, and yes, we will do better. But I see you got the Christmas tree behind you there. I'm showing off the Christmas gift from Colin. I don't know who keeps filling these things out, but they're dead on every single time. I'll tell you that. But full on in the Christmas season. But we will get back very shortly. I think by the 27th, we'll be back in the suits that Frankie gave us. And I can't wait till that day, because we're going to look sharp as we always do when we get taken care of by Frank. And if you want to get taken care of by Frank, head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. See Frankie and the boys. They will do you up just right. You'll look like $1 million. Say hi to Frankie and the boys while you're down there if you do head out there. Ken, you're looking great.
Tell them Kenny and Rennie sent you.
Oh, tell them Kenny and Rennie sent you. Hey, what'd you take away from that game?
Yeah, I think the Jets were mostly steady. I think this was a good showing for, quite a few stretches of the game. I wouldn't say, wasn't a full 60-minute effort, but let's also not forget the Bruins are the best team in hockey. So, Sean, right now they're the gold standard. And what we saw from the Winnipeg Jets was incredibly impressive first period. There were parts of the second where the Jets sort of strayed away from their game. I think the one of the biggest things that we saw was the 3 minor penalties. So I do give the Jets a lot of credit for, I had several players said it. Rick Bowness said it. Mark Scheifele said it. So did Brendan Dillon to the folks in Boston. To Jeff Hamilton asking the majority of the questions in the scrums. They did battle hard right into the end. That is accurate, 100% accurate. Their breakdowns were costly breakdowns. Beautiful setup by David Pastrnak on the power play goal by Jake DeBrusk. I wouldn't even say that was really it wasn't even necessarily a breakdown, but DeBrusk got himself open, and Pastrnak made one of the plays that shows you why he's a top 10 or 5 or 10 player in the NHL. On that game-winning goal, we're gonna dig a little deeper into that one. Just a coverage breakdown where the Jets got mesmerized by the puck. What I would say is that the Jets, it was very accurate to say it was bad luck. Yes, the Jets were in control of the game until the dump in that rattled off the stanchion, and the ghosts of the Garden shot the puck right into the front of the net to the best player on the ice, who had a wide open net. But I'm with you. The Jets had time to get settled in terms of where their game was. They just were never really able to get back on until they kind of were in, urgency mode after they fell behind, I would say. But there were not a ton of breakdowns. I mean, I think that once Boston got to even, they kind of ratcheted up their intensity and kind of stole the momentum, and the Jets struggled to get it back. But for the most part, I think I'm with you. I think the Jets kind of came up with an effort that they would be, not. I think they can be proud of an effort like that. I mean, we know there's no moral victories, but the Jets went toe to toe with the best team in the NHL, and they hung in there right until the end. I think that their forecheck, their forecheck wasn't quite as good as the game went on, but for the most part, their first period, Sean, we always talk about templates. Their first period was the template to have success against any team in the NHL. They did it against one of the best teams in the NHL. I think it's pretty fair to say the Bruins were the better team in the game and in the last 40 plus minutes of that contest. And they were deserving winners. I mean, Swayman played solid. There were a couple, we talked about it. Kyle Connor had a great chance to tie the game at the 6-on-5. I mean, he got the puck in the slot all alone, got a great opportunity, and the puck just sailed just a little bit wide. It wasn't, people are going to say, oh, how do you miss the net from there? I mean, you know how you miss the net from there? Because you're shooting to score. That's how. Right. And it wasn't like he ripped it way wide. I mean, that shot was very close to going in and sending that game to extra time. The Jets, obviously, Brendan Dillon was talking about they wish they had been able to get a point out of that game, but at the same time, there was a lot of good done by the Winnipeg Jets. I know you touched on the the officiating aspect. I mean, was it a ticky-tack call on Mark Scheifele in the offensive zone for tripping? Yes, but Mark's stick was in the feet area of Charlie McAvoy. I did not see it as a dive. I think he I think it was similar to the Cale Makar play. I think that McAvoy kind of lost his footing, but if there's a person in a chase position, Sean, that the ref only gets to see that one time. I think that gets called 95% of the time. So most of the folks sitting at home, look at 17 replays and say, oh well, maybe he was already falling. It's a tough break. I think Mark Scheifele absolutely did the right thing, even though he would have loved to have gone off when he was asked about it by Jeff Hamilton. Mark saying he was not going to comment on that. He didn't want to risk the fine. And more importantly, Sean, when you're a player who's been teed up 2 times late in games and been tossed out of games, you cannot afford to be, even if you think you're right, you cannot afford to attack the officials, because guess what? Then you don't get calls. Or the coin flip calls as they roll along. So I thought that was a smart play by Mark Scheifele to not complain about the call. Rick Bowness also did not want to engage. And here's the other part: Jets had 2 power plays at 2-0. Sean, the first one they had 3 shots on net, but if the Jets get that to 3-0, maybe it's a completely different game, right? I mean that's
God, yeah.
And sorry, Julie Sue, that's not a dumb question. It was one of the most pivotal plays in the game. You, as journalists, you have to ask for a reaction, even though you don't expect Mark Scheifele to engage. You have to give him the opportunity to give his opinion. He's well within his right to not bother engaging, but that's an important question.
This is a great point, Ken. This is a really great point. And here, sorry, just to go on a side tangent. Josh Morrissey, after he finished second star of the week a little while back, he'd finished second behind Jason Robertson in the same week that he'd kind of blown back by Jason Robertson to score in overtime to win that game. And I asked him a question. It's a funny little story. I asked him the question about it and saying like, oh, is there anything that you kind of feel strange about the fact that you're the second star of the week in the same week that you blew past the apparent first star of the week to go and win a huge pivotal game between 2 teams duking it out for first? And he handled it very diplomatically and kind of didn't really touch it, and then kind of walked away from the scrum and gave me a tap on the shoulder and said, I totally avoided that one, didn't I, Sean? Right? Josh Morrissey is a great guy. So I went to him afterwards because I wanted to make sure about this, because I know asking a question like that, just the same as Mark Scheifele was asked this question, can put a player in a bad spot, right? I recognize that. You can ask Mark Scheifele about the officiating. He can lose his mind, go off, and then end up getting a fine, right? Same thing with Josh Morrissey. I could ask him that, and he could play and have a little fun with it and say, well, you know what? I left the first star in my dust. And then you have to worry about, that being bulletin board material or chalkboard material for the other team, right? My take on this is these are men. There's some players will handle this. You asked Patrick Laine those kind of questions. Laine was very adept at taking that and turning it into something funny, something that really engaged the fans, and in my opinion, something that sells the sport, right? And I know, talking with Josh Morrissey, I went to him afterwards and I said, listen, I know I can put you in a bad spot with that. That wasn't my intention. I was just throwing something out there that if you wanted to have some fun with it, you could. And if you didn't want to, you didn't want to. And his response to that, I don't want to get too deep into our conversation behind the scenes, but his response was like, there's no problem with that. And, on different days, I would have a little bit of fun with that. I wasn't there today, but on other days. And that's what we want to do. We want to turn this into a fun thing, and I know the Scheifele thing is maybe a little less fun, but to the point that Ken is making here, and I know I went on a little bit of a side journey here, but to the point we're making is, I take a look at these are men. They know how to handle themselves. If you throw them a question, they know enough to know if you're being asked about the ref that, there's a way to handle that. Sometimes guys are going to get it wrong, but you don't give players an opportunity to do something fearing for the worst. My take on it is you give them something expecting that they can rise to the occasion, and that if they don't feel like rising to the occasion in that moment, that they can just handle it in a very political, public relations type manner. So I'm glad you brought that up, Ken, because I know some people get really mad at journalists when they ask questions like that. And for the most part, I think that there's a difference between a aha, I got you question and a question where you're just giving a player an open canvas, in a canvas that may be in a little bit of an iffy area. I've got confidence in the people that I talk to, especially with the relationships that we've built in the room, Ken, that they can handle it well. So I do ask questions like that. Anyway, continue.
And again, Julie, you're right. You're entitled to your opinion, but we're just trying to provide some context on why the question is asked. I mean, the reason why it's asked is because of what I just mentioned. Mark Scheifele has openly said something to the officials to be tossed out of the game on 2 different occasions. So when he takes a penalty that leads to a goal, it's natural to be curious about what his opinion is. And the other part of that, in our line of work, we can't assume what the Jets are going to say. You can't assume that. You have an idea of what you expect them to say, but you can't assume what they're going to say. So, like I said, I've got no problem with Mark's answer. It's a smart answer, but that question, what needed to be asked, and it's fine if not everyone agrees with that take. But overall, Connor Hellebuyck was great. Here's the other part. After the Jets got the lead, they were tested quite often. I thought Connor had to make some big saves. He had to make a great save off Patrice Bergeron when the game was still tied. So Hellebuyck was excellent coming back. If anyone was concerned about any lingering issues after the illness, I think he answered all of those questions now. But now, Sean, too, I sort of kind of hedged my bets, and I said I didn't expect Connor Hellebuyck to go back-to-back in these 2 games based on the fact the Wild were going to be playing the Jets on the 27th coming out of the break. I'm actually kind of curious if, and I have no way, like I said, I thought David Riddick was excellent the other night. Josh Morrissey called him fantastic. I'll be curious now if the Jets consider going back-to-back with Hellebuyck. I don't think they will. Because he is coming off an illness. But once again, I would not be surprised one bit if Connor Hellebuyck said to Wade Flaherty, hey, man, don't worry. I'm good to go. If you need me, I'm ready to roll. I expect it will be Riddick on Friday against the Capitals. But I am curious if I won't be shocked if I'm not right in this current take, Sean. But overall, that's my buffet appearance. But we're going to dig into Cole Perfetti very shortly here. I did go back, and it sounds like Perfetti had a collision with Brandon Carlo with 2:14 to go. His last shift of the game ended at 2:14. It was only a 16-second shift, and you and I were both surprised when Cole Perfetti was not on the ice when the 6-on-5 was happening against the Bruins late in the game. I saw Morgan Barron out there at one point, and that's not a knock on Morgan Barron, but we know that given Cole Perfetti's skill set, and his promotion to the top power play, he would be out there if he was healthy enough to do so. There was no update provided after the game. Rick Bowness was not asked about it in this situation. It was kind of one of those things that was chaotic and happened late in the game, so I would imagine there's some kind of update. Well, we'll know the update that will be provided will be if Cole Perfetti is in the lineup tomorrow, but I don't expect to hear anything before that. Obviously, that would be another loss for the Jets, who, they already have 6 players out of their lineup, and that's a significant amount, obviously. But we'll see what happens here. With that situation, we'll continue to monitor that. But we don't have a lot of clarity. But I do know that there was a collision with Brandon Carlo late in the game that may have caused an injury, the severity of which we are unclear of at this point.
Okay. Don't want to get too deep into this. I do want to talk. I was going to jump all over that, the Scheifele, because I think that's a great point that you make about the relationship that he's created with the refs with some of his actions. And I wanted to get into, kind of branch out into the Pierre-Luc Dubois conversation that we had behind the scenes,
Yes,
that we will bring out onto the show here, but we're taking too long to get to some of the things that our audience is already all over. Specifically being the Lamplighter and our got you covered plays of the game. I think the got you covered play of the game is as obvious as it gets, but let's start you out with the Lamplighter of the game. You wanted me to do that first? I could no.
I'm just saying.
You go do the Lamplighter first.
Yeah, Lamplighter, I think, is going to be the Jansen Harkins goal, more for the play that Morrissey makes to get the shot through. Good job by Harkins to get to the blue paint. It was really, it's still kind of tough to decipher whether it was actually a really good redirection or if the puck just kind of went in off of him. But Morrissey's ability to get the shot through to extend his point streak to 11 games, that's going to be my Lamplighter of the game. Honorable mention on the Dubois goal, because I thought it was just an exceptional pass by David Pastrnak, who was absolutely tremendous in this game. And we know it's not a Boston Bruins show, but Sean, what's David Pastrnak getting in his next deal? I mean, honestly, the Bruins are the hallmark for keeping their salaries under $7 million. I don't see any possibility whatsoever that Pastrnak is not the guy who breaks that ceiling. I mean, I understand plenty of guys have taken less, whether it's Bergeron, whether it's Marchand, whether it's, other guys prior when it was Chara, and even Pastrnak himself, taking in that $6 million range. I mean, Waiters says 10.5. I mean, I agree that he's probably worth it, but are the days of the hometown discount for the Boston Bruins going to be left in the dust? Because that is something that this has been the glass ceiling for a franchise that very much prides itself on being a contender and being a winner. I'm very curious to see where that rolls. But back to the original point, Josh Morrissey picking up his 33rd assist on that slap shot that goes in or was redirected off of Jansen Harkins.
Yeah. Okay. I dig that one. Let's get to this beautiful graphic that I just absolutely love for the Lamplighter Amber Ale. Hey, if you are interested in an 8-pack of Frosty Delicious Lamplighter Amber Ale, all you have to do is drop in the comments here your Lamplighter of the game, your goal of the game, and you are automatically entered to win a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale. If you can't wait for us to hand that out to you, though, go to TransCanada Brewing Company. Join them in the tap room at 11290 Kenniston. Ken, you and I went there just recently. We took the TSN boys, Freddie Misalachuk, the cameraman, John Liu. We took our camera guy, Colin Jensen. We had some great pizzas there that were just phenomenal. Some great beers. I love it that Johnny Liu and his wife are really into the craft beer, and he's been hitting up that spot. We had both Will and Emma come out from TransCanada Brewing Company, come out and meet everybody. And I think it was Freddie said to me, he went walking in and kind of looking around, and Will, one of the MVPs of that place, stopped and was like, Freddie, what you looking for, right? And Fred was just so impressed with their customer service, as he should be. They do absolutely phenomenal there. But boy, oh boy, it's just my way of saying, listen, we'd love to hand out an 8-pack of Frosty Delicious Lamplighter Amber Ale to absolutely everybody out there. We're trying to get as many out as we can. When you do go there, do yourself a favor, check it out, try some of the pizza, try some of the food, try some of the other beers. It's great. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal space. Go check it out. Do yourself a favor. And I should mention that Daniel Sinclair is our winner of last show's Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter. Daniel Sinclair, you are officially on the clock. You need to get a hold of me. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. I need your full name, assuming it's Daniel Sinclair, and I need your email. Send me that, and I will send you a voucher for a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale that you can go check out. If you don't send it to me, then it gets thrown back in and the next person wins 16. So get on it, Daniel Sinclair. I hope you're here. I hope you're hearing this. Absolutely great stuff.
Let's quick wake up for me. Someone just mentioned the glass ceiling was broken by Charlie McAvoy, who did get to 9.5 in his 8-year deal, and that was a good job there. But I mean, 10 million or higher. Like that's the Blackhawks when they went Kane and Taves to 10.5. That was what I was getting at. And no, I did. It's true. I need to wake up for myself. I did forget that I knew that McAvoy got paid. I didn't know it was quite that high. Or I'd forgotten, and good job. That's a self-inflicted wake up here, and good job on the chat room for catching that. But I still think David Pastrnak is going to go higher than 9.5.
I love this. Braden Mahan says, I love the Lamplighter beer, but I need the shovel. By the way, I've got a list of people I need to call out later when we do the home field dig deeper comment of the game. A list of people who have won who need to get me their contact information so I can start getting your shovels out to you. We'll do that later on in the show. But Braden Mahan, if you love the Lamplighter beer, keep leaving your Lamplighter comments. But if you want the shovel, you got to dig deep. You got to pop with what you have to say out there. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep leaving your questions, your comments, all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, at the end of the podcast, we will announce a winner of the Dig Deeper Award. And we've showed it off, that gorgeous shovel. That is, someone had pointed out, hey, this thing's a little small. Again, you keep it in the trunk of your car, you hit the ditch, you got the perfect little shovel to dig you out. That's what it's designed for. So stick around for that a little bit later on. Ken, I'm just going to jump in and I'm going to take the Johnston Group got you covered play of the game. To me, that is the obvious one. Fumbled puck goes the other way. David Pastrnak on the breakaway for Connor Hellebuyck. And to me, he's got him beat. And it was one of those things where it was just like, okay, this is a goal. And then it wasn't, right? And that's the Connor Hellebuyck special is now you see it, now you don't. It's one of those situations, too, I always think this, where if the player just goes a little bit farther, the goalie has no chance on it, right? But I think it's something in the goaltender and their posture that makes the player say, okay, there's the opening. I'm going to get there right now. And then all of a sudden the glove's there, right? It's psychological warfare. It's what really good goaltenders do. I thought Connor Hellebuyck did an absolutely phenomenal job of that. And that's why he gets the We've Got You Covered play of the game, sponsored by our friends, the Kenny and Rennie OGs at the Johnston Group. And you won't find two businesses with the same challenges, but you will find 30,000 businesses with Chambers Plan employee benefits, proudly administered by our friends at Johnston Group. Chambers Plan is Canada's #1 plan for employee benefits because it evolves with the way you work and live. The plan is run as a not-for-profit designed specifically to support small businesses, and its unique pooling strategy keeps rates stable so you won't have any surprises at your next renewal. Chambers Plan now comes with professional consulting on key financial, legal, and HR issues, and Teladoc telemedicine services are included with every health option. See how Chambers Plan can benefit your business by visiting chamberplan.ca. All right, I want to get into this and have a conversation about this. So you brought up the Scheifele point. I think it's a brilliant point, right? Like these things don't happen in a bubble, right? If you go and tell off refs twice earlier in the season, you better believe that it's maybe a little bit harder for you to get calls down the line, or the calls against you may be just a little bit chintzier, right? And I've got all the time in the world for that argument that Scheifele's penalty was a little bit soft. I do agree with your point. The ref only has one look at this when you're in a chase position and the stick gets up there. I mean, if the stick gets into the hands, that's a penalty, period. That's the way it's been called for a long time. Anyone who's got the old idea of the early 2000s, late 90s era where you had to hook a guy so that he basically got pulled backwards before it was actually a call, that's gone now. If you get the stick into the hands, it's a call, period. That's just the way it goes. So I have all the time in the world for that. I wanted to get back to the Pierre-Luc Dubois thing because there's a couple of funny conversations we've had about this. So Pierre-Luc Dubois tonight, that is clearly an obvious high stick, right? And
Matt Grzelcyk, yes.
Yes. And
the stick is on the inside of the visor. I mean, the stick is on the inside of the visor.
The high stick. It's a high stick, period. It's a missed call. The question.
There's no flopping. There's no neck snap.
No. There is a throw like this. And I looked and I saw him put his hand to his face.
Hand to the face, but he didn't snap his neck.
Come on. I thought Pierre-Luc Dubois was going to be leaking. I was like, this guy's losing teeth. This is a tough situation. And then as he sees the call doesn't happen, he takes his hand away to start arguing with the ref for it not being there. If I'm a ref, what I'm seeing is a guy trying to draw a call, and when he doesn't get the call, dropping his hand immediately and arguing the call. Now, that doesn't matter in the context of the call because that happens after the call isn't made, right? So that doesn't mean anything, but it means something for the next time. And I'll just go on and say this with Pierre-Luc Dubois. Pierre-Luc Dubois, the way that he plays the game, and you know my call on him, I call him the cerebral pest. Pierre-Luc Dubois gets more calls than he doesn't get. There's calls that he gets that he probably shouldn't get that he gets. There's calls that he doesn't get that he probably shouldn't get. But I think he draws way more than he doesn't get. But I'll go back to this point. It's about playing that game, right? And if you want to give an idea of like the kind of player that it is, you and I said this the other day. When Cale Makar has Matt Barzal give him the stick and the ref calls the penalty, and Cale Makar stops everything and says to the ref, there was no call there. I remember texting you and saying, this is the exact opposite of what Pierre-Luc Dubois would do. Pierre-Luc Dubois would sell it and be like, yes, I just did my job, because that's how Pierre-Luc Dubois sees his job. Now, I have no problem with that. Every different player has a different kind of makeup. Cale Makar wants to play with like complete and total honor and not be stained with the idea that he may have tweaked a call, and all the power to him for doing that, right? That's the kind of player he is. And let's be honest, he's able to get away with it because Cale Makar is at the very top of the pyramid when it comes to the most skilled players in the game, right? Pierre-Luc Dubois succeeds in a very different way. He goes bowling through tight areas. He draws penalties. He forces players to take sticks there. But let's be honest, there is no world, no dimension in which Pierre-Luc Dubois would ever turn to the refs and be like, no, you got that one wrong. Because he'd be giving back 4, 5, 6, 7 calls a year if he did. But he takes those and he runs and he gets power play points off of it, and the Jets succeed off of it. But I come back to this point all the time. When I see Pierre-Luc Dubois not getting a call, I understand that there's refs out there that watch him and think that he goes trolling for calls, and that sometimes he gets calls he shouldn't, and so that you're going to run into refs on certain nights that are going to give you the opposite of the benefit of the doubt. I think he at times gets the benefit of the doubt. Tonight he didn't. He got the opposite of that. Is that a missed call? No doubt. Do I understand why it's a missed call? Of course I do, because Pierre-Luc Dubois likes to tweak things to get calls, and that'll burn you sometimes.
Yeah, but in this case and in many other cases, when a call like that is missed and you're getting your evaluation from your supervisor, the supervisor's not saying, hey, good job by not calling that one on Dubois. I mean, the guy's saying you missed the call. You missed it. So as a ref, you have to be very careful in terms of, of course you're going to be aware, but you got to be very careful. And if you miss a call, it hurts your standing when it comes to playoff assignments. So there's a risk in that as well, is what I would say. But I mean, I don't know. To me, I didn't see a neck snap. It's certainly not a, one of the other guys playing in the game, Brad Marchand, is known for, the occasional neck snap. But I think that was one of those where it's legit where, I mean, Sean, this has happened to you and I also. I mean, when somebody's stick gets inside your visor, you're going to react, right? I mean, that's something that is not a comfortable situation. A stick is near your eyeball. There's all kinds of bad things that can happen.
His hand wasn't near his eyeball.
Sorry?
His hand wasn't near his eyeball. His hand was on his mouth. Like he got cut in the on the lip or on the teeth. Well, sure, but I mean, your hand is still going to, like, where your visor is. You're making the point that he was worried about his eyes. He clearly wasn't worried about his eyes because he didn't put his hands up here. He put it to his mouth.
It's hard to get your gloved hand up to your eyeball underneath your visor. I mean, anyways, I'm not saying he wasn't trying to sell it to a degree, but I mean, no, I'm not stretching.
That's all I'm saying.
Let's get the helmet, Sean. Let's get the helmets out from downstairs and see how easy it is to get your gloved hand inside the visor to get it to the top of your face. I mean, anyways, I don't think it was a sales job. Dude, was he trying to get a penalty drawn? Of course, but I think he was well within his right to be trying to Yeah, exactly. So Julie Sue says, if a stick is suddenly in my face, under my visor, my head is snapping back. That's an automatic limbic brain action. The glove to
I
the
agree
face
with
is an
this.
act.
I just looked at him and I thought he lost teeth, right? Like from his reaction, and we've seen this. We've been on the ice with people. Usually you can see if a guy takes a stick and it's one of these things, and usually you're thinking, okay, there's a problem here, right? Like something is wrong here. My initial reaction was he's in a lot of trouble, and then all of a sudden his hand was gone, and he was
No, and again,
the rat, right?
I agree. My initial reaction before I saw the super slow-mo, I wasn't 100% sure that the stick was under his visor. I thought it was in his face. Yes, I mean, it can also be both things, right? I mean, it could have hit his mouth on the way up underneath the visor too, right? I mean, that, you know.
I think it probably did, right?
Right.
I think it did.
So,
I'm.
It's also natural to grab your mouth when there's a stick in that vicinity. I mean, I don't think he was looking for the ketchup packet and going to try to bite his lip like he was in wrestling in the 80s. I mean, I think it was obviously there was a stick that made some contact, but I mean, anyways.
So this is my whole point is I agree with everything everyone's saying here. I agree that your reaction when a stick gets up there is to throw around. I agree that you throw to check things out, right?
And I don't think it was a massive throw. I've seen bigger throws for less of a hit.
I totally agree. I think, again, this is one of the reasons why I think Pierre-Luc Dubois is one of the best in the league at this. It's the subtleties of it, right? It's the little bit of the, like this and holding his mouth for that just a little bit of an extra second, right? You know, and that's it for me, right? Like, I'm not saying, of course the stick got up there. Like, I'm the one who's sitting here saying
the other one.
I'm the one who's saying this should have been a penalty. No doubt this was a penalty. The refs missed this. I am being fully clear on that. I am just giving an idea of what from what I've seen about how Pierre-Luc Dubois plays the game, how there will be some refs that sometimes will give him the call, won't give him the call. And again, I contend he far more often, the fact that he, you know, for a while was leading, I don't know if he still is, but was leading the league in drawn calls will tell you that. He gets a lot of calls, right? And it doesn't mean that people are constantly hacking him down. That's just my point. It's just the little subtleties of the cell. That's why I think he's a cerebral player. I like that he does this. Listen, you've got a team that can score with the number of players that you have on the power play. You want more power plays. Who's better at that? Who's more like, this is just one of the crazy values that Pierre-Luc Dubois brings to the team. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm not saying it's bad at all. I think that he's good at it. But the fact of the matter is when you play that game, some refs feel like they got played. And then sometimes this is the way it rolls out. That's my take on it. Maybe if we'd sat down for beers with some of the officials and I brought this up, they'd be like, Rennie, you are so far off. It's not even funny. And I would accept that if that was the case. This is what I think is happening.
It's part of your charm.
There you go. I've had to
and also the other reason
I've had to eat a lot of crow in my days. Yeah.
I mean, the other part of Dubois is most of the time they have no choice but to call it because they're obvious calls in the guts of the game that happen right in front of everyone. I mean, that, you know, sticks get missed. That happens. But, you know, this is one of the cases where, you know, it hurt them. But that happens. And that's life. Referees are human just like the rest of us. So,
yeah.
But that is one of the points. I mean, it did happen very close to an official. So that gives credence to your situation that maybe they thought he was looking for a sales job there.
They saw it. Like, this is the other part about it.
Well, no, they didn't see it. They missed it. Even though they were looking at it, they missed what happened.
Right.
They may have seen it.
This is my point. They saw it. They saw what happened there and chose not to call that call. This is my point. It's not a situation where they were looking the other way. They saw this, saw what happened to Pierre Dubois, and decided not to make that call. That's why I'm saying something's rotten in the state of Denmark when it comes to this. And just before I move on from this point, Kenny's Waterball says, I'm not getting what Rennie is getting at about PLD getting calls. He shouldn't be getting, but not getting calls. He should be getting. I'm not getting it. What is Rennie getting at? Kenny's water bottle. Listen, I can't slow this down for you. You got to keep up with everybody else in the show. If you need to go watch it on replay, you should go do that. I'm sorry. The hand holding ends here. Kenny's water ball. Okay. I want to get into this, but before we do, I want you to give Sweet Lou a shout out.
For sure, folks. If you're in the realty game, realty market, if you're looking to buy, you're looking to sell, just curious what your house might be worth. Maybe you're thinking about moving or, getting a bigger place or maybe even downsizing. You can contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty. You could reach him at 204-791-9971 or at the office at 204-989-5000. If email is more convenient for you, it's Lou at loufurlan.ca. That's Lou, Lou, at loufurlan.ca. And his website is www.loufurlan.ca. Lou is not only a great realtor, he's a great human being and a great supporter of many things in our community, and a proud Winnipegger. So if you can give him your support, tell him Kenny and Rennie sent you as well.
I was shoveling the driveway the other day, and another Sweet Lou ad came to me.
Okay, there you go.
How's it go? Here, hold on. Give me a second here. It's if you're selling a house or buying one to do yourself a favor, call the big guy Sweet Lou. Hey? My hobby has become trying to come up with taglines for Sweet Lou because they just come to me. I was shoveling the driveway and I was like, I got to write that down. I was like, no, just like my openings, which everyone agrees are entirely, lucid and make tons of sense. I'm just going to wing that one when it comes time. So I don't know. I
appreciate
I don't know why it happens.
Sean, we've been trying to learn a lot of new skills during the 3 seasons of the Kenny and Rennie show, and I appreciate your willingness to continue to look for new skills. And ad writing will soon be something you can add to the resume. There's no doubt about that.
Take that smarmy look off your face, Weeb. I don't know about you. I'm gonna give it.
Helping you is what we do has worked out pretty well for him. But hey, I know you're trying to give some value added, which is good.
Roy Mack, who was great to meet at the party, says, "Don't give up your day job, Rennie." I'm gonna keep trying. I won't give up the day job just yet, but I'm gonna keep trying. I won't stop there, Roy Mack. Sweet Lou deserves some good taglines, and I'm gonna throw as many out there as I possibly can. Okay, we talked about it last show. I'm gonna leave home field for just a little bit later in the show.
Sure.
We talked about it last show. We have not been talking enough about Josh Morrissey in my mind based on what he's been doing. He runs his point streak up to 11 games. Again, it's one of these situations where he's getting the scoring from the point. Part of that, I think, is, you got to give credit where it's due. Jansen Harkins gets to the front of the net. It's another one of these situations. And the Jets came really, really close right towards the end of the game, almost getting another goal where the Boston Bruins goaltender didn't see it at all. The Jets, for my money, are one of the best teams in the league now at getting traffic in front of the net and causing confusion. That means they're working harder than most other teams. It was an impossible problem to solve for this Jets team a couple of years ago. But part of that has to be, and Ken, I know that you're a grinder when you play hockey. I know that I had to be when I was out there. But there's nothing more frustrating when you go to the front of the net and go to war, and the puck gets back and your defenseman has a clear shooting lane and they decide not to shoot it. You're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, my goodness, I'm going to war and I'm taking a beating here, trying to create some chaos, and we're not capitalizing on that chaos. Josh Morrissey is phenomenal at recognizing when the chaos is there and putting it right in the proper spot to capitalize on that chaos. You don't get to 11 straight games with a point as a defenseman without doing that. But I wanted to bring something up. I thought this was pretty interesting because more and more, and I said it last show, to me, Josh Morrissey is the front runner for the Norris Trophy so far this year. The Norrissey effect is in full effect. Our good friend Elliot Friedman on the show last Saturday said about Connor Hellebuyck that he's inching his way into the conversation for the Hart Trophy. I have to respectfully disagree with that, and it's tough to do on a night where he was phenomenal and great, and I know he plays a huge role on this team. I just think, right off the bat, if the bar that's being set for the Hart Trophy is Connor McDavid at near 2 points a game right now and leading the league in both assists and goals, I mean, this is a guy who's nearly lapping the field. Now, if you want to bring him in and make him the second or third guy, that's a different thing. But I just don't think for a second, Ken, and I'd like your thoughts on this, as good as Connor Hellebuyck has been, and no disrespect to Connor Hellebuyck, but in my mind, the clear-cut MVP of this Jets team is Josh Morrissey. And I don't see how Connor Hellebuyck could be a finalist for the Hart Trophy in the NHL when he's not even the best or most important person on his team right now. To me, that's Josh Morrissey, and I don't think it's necessarily that close.
Yeah, I mean, I respectfully disagree, even though I I think that Josh is having a phenomenal season, his best season as a pro, and I think he would definitely he's worked himself into the conversation of the team. But to me, this is simple, Sean. If the Jets are getting league average goaltending or worse, the Jets are a lottery team. They might be San Jose. And
but falling to league average doesn't make you an MVP, right? Like, it's
Sean. The point is, look at what San Jose is getting. Erik Karlsson is a great player on a bad team. I mean, he's putting up great numbers, sure, but what are they accounting to? Nothing. I mean, they're not accounting to anything. So that's why Karlsson's not in the MVP conversation, even though you could make the case because he's in on more than 50% of the goals. But for me, if the Jets are, I think they're a lottery team without, and that's to take nothing away from Morrissey. Morrissey might still be putting up, almost 40 points in the first half of the season if they have league average goaltending. But to me, the backbone of the team is Connor Hellebuyck. I mean, Josh Morrissey's done a phenomenal job of elevating his game. But, in my personal opinion, I see Hellebuyck as the clear-cut MVP of the Jets. But Morrissey is in the conversation because he's having an exceptional year. I mean, he's leading all defensemen in assists. He's very close to Erik Karlsson in points. But, I mean, without Connor Hellebuyck, the Jets are not vying for top spot. They did fall behind Vegas in terms of points percentage, in terms of being, they're back to second in the Western Conference. But, Josh Morrissey's had an exceptional year. And like I said, I think he's deserving of many accolades, including, folks are going to say, oh man, you guys are a bunch of homers. Well, you got Rick Bowness in the Jack Adams, you got Hellebuyck in the Vezina and the Hart, and you got Morrissey in the Norris conversation. But I mean, these guys are legit candidates. I mean, I would also say, and I do think, Rick Bowness is doing a phenomenal job, but I think that how do people not look at Jim Montgomery and say he's the Jack Adams? I mean, this team hasn't lost a home game in regulation time this year. I know the Boston Bruins were a good team last year, but they still decided to make a coaching change. It's not always the underachieving team that does the best that should get this award. I mean, all of those guys, Pete DeBoer changing from Vegas to Dallas, Rick Bowness going from Dallas to Winnipeg, and Bruce Cassidy should also be in that equation. But to me, Jim Montgomery should be the favorite. I'm not saying by a long margin. I think it's neck and neck with Rick Bowness, but I think that if we're ignoring the Boston Bruins just because they were a good team last year in the Atlantic Division, I think you're not doing the award justice, which is also part of the reason why John Cooper's never got his due when it comes to the Jack Adams Award, even though he's done a great coaching job. Yes, of course they have talent, but if a coaching change was required, you still had to hand the reins over to the right coach. So, anyways, it's a long-winded way of saying that. I would say that Josh Morrissey deserves consideration for the Jets MVP, but I wouldn't go so far as what you're saying that he's the clear-cut MVP of the Jets. That's not my personal view. I think the Jets have always required above average to elite level goaltending, and they're getting elite level goaltending. So Josh is doing a great job. He's having a great year, but this is one where we're not going to we're going to stay on the we're going to say we're not agreeing.
Not opposite.
We're not in complete agreement, but yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. No, here's the other part of this that I think is coming out of this. And maybe you'll agree with me on this. Maybe you can get your stuff together and agree with Rennie when he's right.
Well, let's see what the chat room thinks. Let's open it wide. What do people think? Please give your comments.
I do like that. Let's do an informal poll. Who's your MVP of the Winnipeg Jets this year? And we won't just close it off to Josh Morrissey and Connor Hellebuyck. Let's open it up to everybody. But I will say this, and this is what I want your thoughts on next. I know that they started the season. They've got 3 A's. So far this season. In your mind, is there any doubt? And there could be, because I think that Adam Lowry is, and I know North End Rick will be like standing up screaming at the YouTube television, whatever he's watching right now, about this being Adam Lowry. But I think Josh Morrissey, in his play, in his leadership, how he's handled himself, how he's handled the room, I think, and also just kind of showing up at all the right times, time and time again. I think that Josh Morrissey has cemented himself as the next captain of the Winnipeg Jets. Never mind the fact, Ken, that I think both you and I have been saying, I know I said this years ago, Josh Morrissey is going to be a captain in the NHL. He conducts himself with class both on and off the ice. He's everything you could ever ask for in an NHL captain. I don't know that I thought it would arrive this quick, but in my mind, the arrival has happened. When Rick Bowness is ready to name the captain of this Winnipeg Jets team, it is going to be Josh Morrissey.
Yeah, I mean, that was my original choice going into the year, so I'm glad that you're on my side.
Expunge.
I'm just kidding. We've both been on this, and I'm going to extend this one a little bit further, and it's going to be an explanation that I think North End Rick is going to understand. The reason why Josh is a perfect choice is that he's going to have Adam Lowry as a strong-voiced alternate, so that it's not going to get to the point where one guy it's going to be just like it is right now, where the leadership is shared, even though Josh Morrissey is going to wear the C next. I mean, generally speaking, the captain is a star player. Josh Morrissey is pushed himself into the star player category. All those folks going into the year saying the Jets don't have a number one defenseman, well, that's inaccurate. Josh Morrissey is showing by a substantial margin that he can be a top pairing and a number one defenseman. There's no debate about that anymore. That's happening. And people can say, oh, small sample size. Over the course of the last 2 years, Josh has shown that he's a number one defenseman. This year, his offensive numbers are skyrocketing. So that he's added that element. For me, Adam Lowry would make a great captain. You could easily make a case for him. But I think there's just a little bit more of a star quality when it comes to Josh. He was a guy who committed to an 8-year deal early. And I think that counts. Adam is also committed long-term to this franchise. And like I said, I think you could make a case for both players. But to me, I think I'm sticking with what I said from the very beginning. I think Josh is going to be the next captain of the Jets. I do not think there will be a captain named this year, nor do I think there should be one named. The Jets have got a good thing going for themselves, and they don't need a captain right now. So for me, I agree with you completely. And I mean, I've said this from October, like maybe even September already. Like, this is something that Josh was always being kind of groomed for this job. Yes, you could say that Mark Scheifele was also in that consideration, and Mark's having a great year too. Sean, we both know this, but until Mark Scheifele signs a long-term deal, he won't be under consideration for the C. I think Josh Morrissey, it would be a very wise choice. And again, those guys are all providing great leadership in their own leadership style. And, this is one we do agree completely on, that I think Josh will be the next captain of the Jets, and deservedly so. And that's, like I said, that's got nothing to do with whether or not Adam Lowry would be a capable captain. He most certainly would be that. But I would say that Adam Lowry was more likely to be a captain in the 90s or the 2000s, when the more of those role players who play an important role get that job over a top pairing defenseman or a top line centerman or winger.
Tristan Rivers comes rolling in here. He says, I think the fact that you can't easily name a clear-cut MVP is a good sign for the Jets. The thing they needed this year more than anything was strong work as a team, not one guy having a career year. This is a great comment. It's a way of me trying to get away from the poll that we conducted here. Ken, I don't know if you saw it. I had to take my boots off to count all the Helly votes in there. I am going to concede that I lost the vote in the chat room here, which just once again leaves me befuddled and scratching my head at how easily you can lead these poor people in the chat room astray with your comments here. It's these poor people.
Buddy.
Last thing we should get into before we go here, and before I do that, this is good. This is a kind of conversation that requires a headband. So let's get at it right now and make sure that we make this a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Rennie show. Let's hit it. Okay, I wanted to get into this before we get into the home field stuff. So there was a little bit of a kerfuffle on Twitter today, and people calling out both Huss for on his Winnipeg Sports Talk show and Marat, and the conversation had to center around the media, the big bad media, picking on Villi Heinola, putting the spotlight unfairly on Villi Heinola. And I have to say, Ken, and chat room, everyone here, I was honestly, and listen, there's going to be some of the people that we're talking about in here. I hope that I can make this a civil conversation. I don't want to be like finger pointing and doing all this kind of stuff. I'm blown away by the assertion that people feel that way, and here's the reason why. So, like Ken, our show is just a perfect example of this, and it's why I love our show, because the chat room, just like you're doing right now, you're bringing their conversation into it. One of the reasons we talk about Villi Heinola is because the chat room asks us to talk about Villi Heinola. And the interesting part about this is I feel like there's a certain segment of the fan base that is upset and feels like the journalists are picking on and organize in an organized manner, picking on Villi Heinola. I can assure you, if you've watched The Simpsons and the Stone Masons or Stone Cutters episode, there is no Villi club meeting that all the members of the Winnipeg media are getting together to bash Villi Heinola. I'm blown away by this, because it seems like these are the people who always want to talk about Villi Heinola, and now they're upset that people talk about Villi Heinola. This blows my mind. Like I couldn't believe it when I saw it here. So here's the other part about this is like, and I'll get like, he's the next Nick Patan, right? He's the next Sami Niku. And I'm not saying his career is going to end that way. But it's just, there's these players that there's a certain segment of the fan base. And I know when I grew up being a hockey fan, I was the same thing. I remember it blew me away. Lonnie Bahanis didn't get as much as he got with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And if you remember Robbie Schrempf, just an absolutely super skilled guy who never really kind of caught on at the NHL level. And I remember thinking, boy, these morons in the NHL, they don't know how to figure this out. Like, there's a certain segment of people who think that Villi Heinola couldn't get past Paul Maurice and couldn't get past Dave Lowry. And then Rick Bowness came in here, and despite the fact Rick Bowness looks like he's done almost every possible thing right, there's people looking and saying, geez, this idiot can't figure out that the best defenseman is wasting away in the AHL. I know I'm being a little bit, like I'm putting too much into this. I'm making it bigger than, and I know people aren't really saying that. What I am saying is Villi Heinola is a conversation because people out there are demanding to talk about Villi Heinola. And so when we talk about Villi Heinola, it's because people want to talk about Villi Heinola. We also talk about Villi Heinola because his agent comes out and says that he's upset, and he puts out the Bernie meme with Villi Heinola sitting on the back. Like, there's a lot of buzz that's created around Villi Heinola through social media, through people in his camp. The strategy of talking about him is not like, have a look. It's not local media driven. It's driven by fans. It's driven by social media. It's driven by his agent. It's driven by people in his camp. This is why this is a topic of conversation. Also, it's a topic of conversation because on a team where people are constantly fighting for spots, he's a guy who gets in and gets a show. So we want to have a conversation about what did he show tonight, and is it good enough for him to stick around? So a lot of people are going to be mad that I approached this way. They're going to be upset that I talked about this, that maybe we'll find that this is further confirmation that Rennie is just going out and hiding the group of media members who get together behind the scenes, the media, and, all like say the same thing about this. Like, look, at my take that you get on Villi Heinola is going to be, from what I saw, my take. It's been that since the very beginning. I feel like you do the same thing. And so on that note, we should talk about Villi Heinola. I would like to talk about him. And here's the reason why. The Boston Bruins are a team that apply pressure the same way the Winnipeg Jets do. You've been hearing me and talk about the Winnipeg Jets and how they break teams. Like they broke the Chicago Blackhawks, like they broke the Vancouver Canucks, like they broke the Ottawa Senators. If you are a team that is not quite prepared, or a little bit weakness, or if you're young and indecision kind of kills you, the Winnipeg Jets will kill you. That's what the Boston Bruins did. I thought Villi Heinola had a great game tonight. I go back to my thing. I didn't notice him that much out there. I will say this, on the game-winning goal, he was on the ice, and I took a look at it. I thought no one on the ice in that moment did a better job than Villi Heinola did. He got his man at the front of the net. He pushed him out of the shooting lane, and he had that guy boxed out should there have been a rebound on the shot. There wasn't. It went straight in, but Villi Heinola took his man, got him out of the way, made sure he wasn't a threat. He did a good job on that. I really liked how he looked with Dylan. I think, despite the fact I know that we've seen him show other flashes of offense, we know that's not his problem. He's got to stick in the NHL by making sure he can show he can play defense at that level. I thought tonight was maybe the best showing for Villi Heinola, in the idea that against a very, very tough team that creates problems for players. And let's be honest, Dylan Samberg had problems tonight with the pressure of the Boston Bruins. Villi Heinola, I didn't think did. I thought he played really well. That's my take on it. I'm not switching a take because there's, people out there pressuring, getting really upset that we're talking about Villi Heinola. But here's the other thing. You can call us the media. You can suggest we're in cahoots and talking about this. I'm going to keep talking about what I think that we should talk about. And so on a night like tonight, I'll talk about Villi Heinola, no matter what people take away from it. I thought he had a great game. I thought he earned another showing at the NHL level. Rick Bowness has come out and said how long he sticks around will be up to him. I think he took a little bit of a control of his fate tonight and got a further look, like you were suggesting just a couple shows, that he should get 5 straight games or something, which also seems to clash with the idea of the big bad media trying to run Villi Heinola out of town.
Yeah, nobody's trying to run Villi Heinola out of town. This is very obvious. I mean, there's an opportunity for Villi Heinola that has not been there before. Many people wondered why that opportunity didn't come when the Jets were playing, pending unrestricted free agents like Tucker Poolman and Nathan Beaulieu, and even going back, they've been rolling out guys who have been on, even Derek Forbort, who was in the game today. I mean, but Forbort played in the Jets' top 4. I mean, Villi Heinola has an opportunity now that he's never had yet. He has an opportunity to play more of an offensive game with Nate Schmidt being out. There was the great comment said earlier, Heinola's biggest problem is that he's not going to be able to be thrown onto the first power play unit because of Josh Morrissey's emergence. I mean, and the other comment that I loved was people saying the reason, and I've said this many times, the reason we talk about Villi Heinola, about it taking so long, is because of the 8 games he played as an 18-year-old. Most times, Sean, no chance that a 20th overall pick is spending any time in the NHL unless the Jets are in serious danger. That year, the Jets had issues on the back end, so he started way earlier than we thought. The fact that he had to go getting bounced up and down and back and forth and, going back to Finland and then COVID, I mean, no one could have predicted that. I mean, that's just the way the world went. I mean, and then people saying, well, if the Jets wanted to start him in the lineup, they shouldn't have sent him to the World Juniors. I mean, come on. The guy was 19 years old. Of course he should be going to the World Juniors, playing against his peers. I mean, and he did a good job of playing against his peers. But that also showed, that should have been a glaring signal that the Jets didn't believe that Villi Heinola was going to start the season with them. I mean, then they wouldn't have bothered sending him to the World Juniors. But Villi was fine today. I mean, I think he was fine. I mean, I have no issues. I didn't see a lot of glaring issues in his game. He moved the puck efficiently. Were there a couple times he was under pressure? Of course. The Bruins make experienced players look ordinary at times. I didn't think that Heinola had any really bad cough-ups. He held the line pretty well. He had a couple of offensive showings. I thought he played with more confidence, which is what you would expect from a guy who was only playing his second game in 3 weeks' time, against the best team in the NHL. So my view has not changed. I mean, I think the Villi Heinola needs to play a nice stretch of games, provided he plays well enough to play. So he took another important step in that process today. I think it's important. I know some folks are, ready to move on, and there's a great comment about Tage Thompson. I mean, people thought that, oh, well, who's this Tage Thompson guy that the Sabres got for Ryan O'Reilly? Well, Tage Thompson is now the best player on the Buffalo Sabres, and he's one of the best scorers in the league. I mean, could that still happen for Villi Heinola? Perhaps. I mean, he's still a young player, like 21 years old. So there is going to be time for him. And right now, with Nate Schmidt out for at least a month, there is an opportunity for Villi Heinola to make some inroads and maybe establish himself in terms of what kind of player he can be when that opportunity arises. But again, he hasn't popped the way that people expected. No, he hasn't had a long opportunity to do so. But that's the thing. I mean, in his situation, he needs to steal a job from someone who's on the roster. And right now, he hasn't done that. This stretch of games may give him the opportunity to do so. But we've talked about this a lot. I mean, the Jets' defense core is not overly big and they're not overly physical. So, I mean, Villi Heinola has a different set of skill set. I mean, he's a guy who moves the puck and helps them with zone exits and entries and can walk the line and provide a lot of offense. And as long as he can check adequately, there's a space for him. I mean, people who think the media were trying to run him out of town, my opening day lineup projection had both Villi Heinola and Dylan Samberg in it. So I'm not trying to run anybody out of town. But when I say that other teams are going to be calling and asking about Villi Heinola, it's because I've covered the NHL for 12 years and 10 years of the American League before that. And I've watched how those calls get made. When the Jets are looking to acquire somebody, other teams ask about the top prospects. That's what happens when you're trying to improve your team if you're in a rebuild or trying to reconfigure your roster. So in order to go big game hunting, those names have to be in play. That's not to say the Jets want to move them or will move them. I mean, we'll see what happens in there. But I think it's a great opportunity for Villi Heinola to show himself what he can do. I mean, this is a guy that has a skill set the Jets don't have a whole lot of. But it's also incumbent on Villi Heinola to show those skills on a regular basis. I'm with you. This is a pairing that I wanted to see more of. I'm surprised they didn't go with it initially. Now they have. Obviously, part of that is being on the road, and you're not able to shelter your guys as much. And I agree with you completely. I mean, Dylan Samberg had a rough go. I think Dylan Samberg has been doing a nice job for a while. Sorry, Bad Mood Blake. I didn't mean this year for Heinola at the World Juniors. I meant when he was a 19-year-old. Not now. Anyways, that both those pairings struggled today. Neil Pionk, I mean, he had a nice run of games there, Sean. I went out of my way to say, I thought he made some nice strides. That pairing had a tough go for most of the evening. I mean, we've talked about this before. People say that other guys don't get criticized. I mean, Neil Pionk is a good player. He was the Jets' best defenseman for 2 years. But right now, he's not playing like a guy who makes almost $6 million. He's not playing at that level. But, he can improve. He's shown that he can improve, and I expect that he will improve. Today, Dylan Samberg had a hiccup. Young players have hiccups, especially those who haven't even played 100 games in the NHL. But at the same time, I mean, I'm not saying Dylan Samberg should be sent to the press box because he had one, subpar or mediocre outing. Of course not. He's a young player. He's gonna learn. He's gonna learn from his mistakes, and he'll probably be great tomorrow. I mean, he's shown a propensity to bounce back and play well. I mean, that's what he's done. But when you have young players, the problem, Sean, is that this is what we talked about with Heinola. The problem for Villi Heinola is he needs to be playing on a team that has no consequences and isn't battling for first place, because then you can have the on-the-job training and not worry about a mistake being something that knocks a team out of the playoffs. And that's not to blame Heinola. It's just his situation would be different if he was in Arizona than compared to a team in Winnipeg that has a 67-year-old head coach who probably prefers to play veteran players, even though he's known as helping young defensemen grow in their careers, whether he was in Vancouver as an assistant or an associate, whether he was in Tampa working with Victor Hedman, or whether he was in Dallas where he helped guys like Miro Heiskanen and Esa Lindell, among others. So, those guys will get their chance. Right now, Villi Heinola has his chance. So, I mean, it's up to him to show it. I mean, that's what people are saying. I mean, there's plenty of people who support and believe that Villi Heinola can be an NHLer. I've said it for a long time. I think he has top pairing potential. To this point, he hasn't been given much of a window in order to do that, nor has he shown enough to be giving the opportunity to play that many minutes. So it's chicken and egg, but when you're in a situation like Heinola, you have to impose your will on the situation and take the next step in your career, and that's what he has the opportunity to do so right now.
We should wrap this up. I just wanted to bring this up because I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Sorry, you need to dig deeper still. You still need
yeah,
to dig
I know.
deeper.
We'll get it. Oh my god! If you tell me to produce the show when I'm going to produce the show one more time,
Sorry.
I'm going to flip right out. Maul
Please
thought
do.
I was getting mad at him. He says, "Remember when Media Crown Stanley is the next Char? Remember when the Media Crown Heinola the next, or Heinola?" I honestly, I can't tell if Maul is just like trying to get our goat. Like, we had this conversation on the show where I told Scott Billick that people needed to calm down with the comparing Logan Stanley to Zdeno Chara, because you're basically talking about the best big man in the history of the game, and it's unfair to take someone who's a similar height and say he's the next this. No one went and took 5'11" players and said he's the next Wayne Gretzky, right? Like, there is a lot that makes up a really good player, and there are a ton of players like the Kyle McLarens of the world who played around 6'7" who were never anywhere near as good as Char. So I don't know if Maul is just trying to get my goat. If he is, he sure got it. But again, I think all these comments come with the media, right? Because one person in the media will make a point, and then someone in a very lazy manner will say, well, the media said this. I bristled at the suggestion that Logan Stanley was the next Zdeno Chara, and I never came close to making that equation. I thought it was a massive mistake to do so.
Same
nothing, nothing grinds a journalist more than someone going and saying, you said this, when you actually said the exact opposite of that. It sounds like Maul doesn't agree with that take. Well, Maul, you should probably listen for the media members who say stuff that you agree with, and not just like take and paint everyone with the same brush. That's the issue with all that kind of stuff. I'm going to get into the home field, and I'm going to hand that out. And I got to say this, sometimes campaigning can do you good, because Braden Mahan was campaigning for a shovel all game. And I'm going to say, just like you can take a buried driveway and one shovel stroke at a time, eventually clear it right out, Braden Mahan stacked one good comment after another, and it culminated in this one. Oh, Rennie, don't mention shoveling the driveway. If only I had a shovel. Well, you got one, my friend. So what you got to do is get a hold of SN Sean Reynolds. Send me a direct message, and I will send you a voucher where you can go pick up your very own Kenny and Rennie / home field shovel, provided by our friends at Home Field. You dug deeper tonight, Braden Mahan, and because of that, you can do all the deep digging you want with your new Kenny and Rennie / home field shovel. Congratulations on that. And before we go, I hope
Home Field for
listening.
marketing and more.
There you go.
www.homefield.ca.
I hope people are listening, because it's not just Braden Mahan. I've got a list of people who have won in the past. I know that I told you we were taking stock of everybody who had won a shovel, and we've been taking stock. So I'm going to announce a bunch of names here. You got to direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds, and I will get you your voucher for your shovel, which you can go pick up at TransCanada Brewing Company. The good folks there are holding on to them there for us. So if you want to go there, have a pizza, buy some beer, do the same thing. That would be great. The list, I've already got Tristan Rivers out to him. Kenny's water bottle. I don't think Kenny's water bottle is going to claim it, Ken, because then he would have to out himself and show who he is. So maybe, listen, Kenny's water bottle, we promise we'll keep it a secret. If you want to reach out to @Weebs World and send him a direct message, I will get him the voucher that he can send to you, so you can remain anonymous with these terrible ice cold takes of yours. I'm not sure I even want to know who's coming up with such ice cold takes. Blue Thunder as well. Paul Robert, Lowry's right hand. Ryan Friesen, if someone can help us get a hold of Ryan Friesen, who is banned from the show. I'm a man of my word. I handed it to him one time thinking that his comment was being ironic. It clearly wasn't being ironic. I messed that one up. But hey, Ryan Friesen, I'm a man of my word. You get yourself a home field shovel. T. Will won a number of them. T. Will actually won 4 shovels. We can't give him 4 shovels, but T. Will, you can gift 2 of the 4 shovels that you won to other people in the chat room, or you can claim it for friends of yours. I know a friend of my wife, Rob Weeb, you came to the party with. You could give one to him. The way he drives, he could probably use it. I Smell Great, Wiz Krilm, Kenny's water bottle actually won too. There you go. T. Conapoli, Helly's Kitchen, Russ Lowen, Lynn Reimer, Rob Somerville, BA Split, and Whiskey Coop. You are all in line for a home field / Kenny and Rennie Dig Deeper shovel because you dug deeper on our show. We appreciate it. And that's how we want to show our appreciation. Thank you so much, everybody. Ken, you did a great job here tonight. If you have anything to say, now's the time. Other than that, I think that we're probably good because we got to do this all over again tomorrow night. People were asking about it because my flight already got canceled because travel delays are already happening. I am not going to Washington tomorrow for the Alexander Ovechkin watch, so I will see you right here on this show. Other than that, I want to give the one last final shout out, which I always do. If you appreciate the conversations that are happening in these spaces with people like us, the Kenny and Rennie Show, the Illegal Curve Show, Winnipeg Sports Talk, please appreciate the sponsors who are making sure that these conversations keep happening in this space. For us, that is the Vittorio Rossi, the TransCanada Brewing Company, the Johnston Group, Lou Ferlin, and Home Field. Thank you so much to them. Thank you so much to you. We appreciate everything you do and hope that we can appreciate you showing up after the next show, which is tomorrow. Talk to you then, everybody.